everyone, it's Stephanie and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another Manic Monday book review. Today I have such an exciting book review for you, and it's really hard for me because I kind of put it off because I'm so freaking excited about this book that it's hard for me to put my thoughts in any kind of concise order. So I just figured, what the heck, we'll just go with it. And the book that I want to talk to you about today is Mistborn, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I read Skyward at the beginning of this year and absolutely adored it. That was my first Sanderson book, and I'll link it so you can watch it. But I read Skyward and I posted something on my Facebook page about it, and then one of my friends who is a Brandon Sanderson fan was like, hey, you need to read Mistborn. And I bought the book and subsequently forgot about it until Starsight came out. And then I was like, oh yeah, I have Mistborn. But let's just start with the synopsis. So this is basically set in a world where the bad guy won, and he has been a tyrannical ruler for the last 1,000 years, and things are bad, like really bad. He is very oppressive, and there are people called Ska, which are essentially slaves. They're the poor people of this world. And then you also have the noblemen, who are the rich people in this world. And in this world we follow Vin, who is a teenager, and she has a very troubled past, and she's dealing with all this abuse and trauma, and in the process she meets up with this guy Kelsier and his crew, and they get together in order to take down this tyrannical lord ruler. And it is just phenomenal. Phenomenal. But I will say this is a good bridge book between YA and adult. So my first Sanderson book was a YA book, and it was really good. And then this is an adult book, but the protagonist is a teenager, and so I think that would really make it a lot more accessible for those who are new to fantasy, or those who are used to reading young adult and they want to start reading adult fantasy like myself. This was a really good bridge book for that. Sanderson's writing, I can't figure out what it is about his writing, but in every book that I've read by him, if I'm not reading it, I'm thinking about when I can read it next, or what's going to happen next, and how fast can I get through this task so I can pick up this book again. And I've never read an author who affects me like that, just with his writing and his story. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. He's popular for a reason. Another thing that I absolutely loved in this book is the magic system. It is so unique from anything I've ever read. So basically the people in this book are allomancers, so they can ingest metals and burn them or flare them in order to do certain things, whether it be in heightened senses, or using a metal to discover who else is using allomancy, or pushing and pulling on metal as a method to travel faster or in battle. and I just thought that was so cool. And the other thing I loved about this magic system is that there are hard limits. So you could easily burn yourself out if you use a spell for way too long and just exhaust yourself when you're done extinguishing the metal. And I just think that makes for such great tension in the story, because you can see where the characters are in a fight and you can feel them, that their metal reserves are just reaching their limit, and it just adds such another layer versus softer magic systems where they can conveniently have, you know, a new spell come in or something happen and it conveniently helps save the character. In this magic system, the stakes are very high and it's very possible to burn yourself out. And I loved that about it. And this is very unique. I'm obviously newer to fantasy, especially adult fantasy, but I've never read about a magic system that was intricate like this and had limits, and I loved that. I absolutely loved it. One thing that could be considered a negative is this book does have a lot of tropes in it, so things that are really common that we see a lot, particularly in young adult books, such as the teenager with the troubled past and this father figure becoming like a hero to this girl and things like that. But I think the way Sanderson does it, it's just, it doesn't bother me. Their tropes done really well. Another strength of this book are the characters. The characters are phenomenal and the character arcs are so good. And we follow Vin, and she is so flawed and has such a troubled past, and so she's slowly learning how to trust people. And I think it's very realistic, because I think in a lot of books when you have a troubled past, they meet someone and then instantly everything's good, which doesn't happen like that in real life. So I loved that Sanderson took the time with Vin's character to let her learn how to trust people again and let her learn that there are good people in the world. And I also loved Kelsier. He is also a flawed character, and he has such an interesting past, and he's so charismatic, and I just found him to be a character that I wanted to know more about, even though the focus was on Vin. And all the other characters in this crew have these backstories that we learn about, and they're all flawed, and they just, the dynamics between all the characters are just great, and you just really felt like you got to know the characters and you knew their personalities and how they might react to something. And his character development in this book is brilliant. One thing that I didn't particularly care for was the romance in this book, and I did like the build-up. It was very realistic. They met and they kind of flirted a little and kept meeting up at these balls, and I really enjoyed the banter between them, and it just felt natural. And then, you know, they get together, and it is kind of integral to the plot near the middle end of the story, but I just felt like we had this great build-up, and then bam, they're together. And I wish he could have dragged it out a little bit more, but since I've started book 2, I think that would be kind of hard to do, knowing what's coming, but it's a little thing, but it bothered me a little bit. The plot development in this book is stunning. It's its own story, so you could technically finish this book and feel satisfied. However, there's still enough threads or questions that haven't been answered that you really want to pick up book 2 to find out what happens. But this doesn't end on such a huge cliffhanger where it sucks to have to wait to get the next book. So I also really enjoyed that it's its own story in a larger series, which I think is awesome. So that being said, that was my spoiler-free section, and I'm actually going to do something different and do a spoiler section because I have feelings and I need to talk about them. So I'm going to put a little something up here stating that it's the spoiler section, and then when that's gone, we'll just do my final thoughts and wrap up the video. So, final warning, spoilers ahead. I loved Kelsier, and I kind of saw his death coming, but I really thought that he'd be resurrected, and you know, at some point, or like it wasn't really a real death. But then once you got into the story and saw that it was his plan all along, and that's why the death was so easy, it was so good. So good. And I just... And, oh my god, I also loved when, I think her name is Sean, she was kind of, sort of picking at Vin, and then it turned out that they got in this huge fight because Sean ended up being this amazing Mistborn, and then Vin just snaps and just kills her. Like, that scene was amazing. And I was on the edge of my seat, and every one of these scenes in this book just had me, like, I could not read it fast enough. Could not read it fast enough. I also love that scene where Vin got really mad at Kelsier and the crew and just snapped and started yelling about how they're not really ska because they've never been on the street and never really had to go hungry or stay awake at night because somebody might decide that they want to rape her or whatever. Like, they've never really known true suffering. And I just loved when she came into herself at that moment and just solidified my love for her as a character, because yes, she has a troubled past, but I think that's the moment when she really started taking ownership and healing and starting to trust people and let them in. And I thought it was so cute later when Kelsier came up to apologize, and she was like, well, I can't go down there and face them, I'm so embarrassed. And he basically said, nobody cares, we all say stupid stuff. Which, so true. So true. The ending, the ending. I'm only 100 pages into the next book, but when she's killing the Lord Ruler and he says, "You have no idea what I've been doing for you," or something to that effect. And I want to know why, but it was such a good thing to end on, and such an iconic line to just really get you to buy the second book, which is what I did right after that scene. But it was so good. It was so good. I'm still having trouble being coherent about my love for this book, but I finished it the other day and I have not been able to stop thinking about it, and I'm actually about 130 pages into the second book, The Well of Ascension, and I'm probably about to go and buy book 3 because I'm gonna want to know what happened. But I think I really understand now why so many people love Brandon Sanderson's writing, and I'm really sad that I haven't started it like sooner than this, because I've had this book for almost a year and I just now got to it, and it is one of my favorite books, not just of this year, but that I've ever read. Like, it blew my mind, and I'm so glad that I waited to film my best books of 2019 video so that I can include this, because I just want everyone to read it. And I think I loved it even more than Daisy Jones and There's Something About Sweetie, which is something to be said because both of those books I've read 3 times this year. This is probably a really crappy review, and I'm sorry, but maybe my excitement for this book will get you to read it if you haven't. Or if you have, let me know. Obviously, I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. If I could give it more, I would. Have you read this trilogy or this book? If so, let me know. I'd love to talk to you about it. As always, if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.